There's a story that Thorin tells every now and then where he talks about how a friend of his had a friend over his house. And he was like, hey, dude, why don't you play some Quake? I got to run to the store. And he was gone for 30 minutes. And the guy had never played Quake before. When he came back, he asked his friend, hey, how'd you like the game? And he's like, it was pretty good. But it would have been nice if I could, have killed some of those guys. It was pretty hard, I couldn't kill them at all. I just got owned. That seems like a normal assumption for most people. But this anecdote is really brilliant because it really underscores how insane that really is. You're playing with people who have played the game for like 10 years or more. They play the game for decades. You've played the game for 30 minutes. Why should you be able to defeat an opponent who's done that? That would be like coming up to a chess grandmaster and saying, we played like 3 or 4 matches together, but I never stood a chance, dude. It's like, well, do you know anything about chess? No, I just started. just read the rule book on the way over. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's incoherent as an argument, right? If your game is a skillful game, right, there's no shot that you should be able to defeat somebody who has mastered the game. Another example would be like, BJJ, right, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or any sort of martial art. You don't expect to be able to just like have a puncher's chance against somebody in a martial art where there's like your innate bodily characteristics do matter, but you need to learn moves and learn rotations and stuff. Like, you're not going to be able to defeat somebody even if you have like the better body type or whatever, because there's a knowledge barrier there, right? And so it's the same thing for a game. It's like, if you don't know how to play the game well, you shouldn't expect to be able to win against somebody who does know how to play the game well. But modern games are like Mario Kart with the fucking blue shell that just punishes the player who's ahead of you. And it's like, okay, well, now we can even the odds. A lot of games are like that with comeback mechanics and noob traps and like, oh, hey, this champion in League of Legends can be played with one hand, lol. It's like, basically what happens when you make the game easier for the new player who doesn't know how to play the game, you diminish and essentially punish the good player who does know how to play the game, because you're reducing the gap between the two of them. So what happens is the new player doesn't need to learn nearly as much as the veteran player, because in order to defeat the veteran player, because the game bridges the gap between the two of them. And that does short circuit the entire reason to get better at a game. So the solution to this is to make it so that a competitive and skill testing game has content that you can play in single player or cooperative without ladder anxiety and without worrying that you're dragging your team down or whatever. And so the content is like a set of skill level, right? And also a competitive ladder with enough people. You're going to have a situation where you play a couple placement games, and then in your rank and rating are sort of what constitutes how good you really are, or is like an estimation of how good you are. And then you get matched with people of a similar rating, and now you're both relatively the same skill level, and so you can have a fair match, right? It's like providing fairness to players of all skill levels is one of the best ways to ensure that players can get better at the game. Without being able to do that, they are less likely to want to do that, right? So games like Mario Kart were designed to be when you have an item to use from time to time, been that way since SNES. I'm not saying, like, they're not designed to be competitive games. They're designed to be party games, and that's fine. But the problem is games like Fortnite, League of Legends, Dota 2, there's a gradient here where like Dota 2 is more on the hardcore side of that. It should definitely not be possible that the game just lucks you into a win, which is exactly what happens in Battle Royale games, and also definitely what happens in at least League of Legends, especially considering they actually have critical chance. I know Fortnite is skillful at the highest level, but you do realize you have to accept that it is a game that is designed for people who are not skillful, because by definition, like a 12-year-old, by the way, is not going to be able to just master a game, or more likely a kid. Like they don't even know how to walk yet, like correctly without being unstable. The odds of them being able to fucking have the same hand-eye coordination as somebody who's been playing games for years, unlikely, right? It's about transferable, like the ability to transfer skills or to learn new skills and then apply them. That's like a deeper meta skill that you can have that will apply to all sorts of games, and within one game in all sorts of contexts. And really, like, competitive games are a stand-in or another implementation of an activity that if you do well in and apply the same practices that allowed you to do well in these games to the rest of your life, you can actually improve your life the same way that you improve at a game. And most people don't even think about that. And they think that talking about games and self-improvement in the same breath is just silly. And hey, if you want to treat your games like toys, then at that point, really, it's just a leisure activity. And, much closer to waste of time than you may want to admit. Not that leisure is a complete waste of time, but it's leisure. It's less important. But you can use games as a way to practice self-improvement. And most people don't think about that. And the less competitive the games get, the more casual the games get, the less likely it is for people who are playing those games to be able to take valuable lessons that can be applied to the rest of their life. That is an area that I find very lacking in the modern ecosystem.